Late Night with the Devil is a supernatural horror film that wrestles with network ratings, secret societies, and the occult. Portrayed as a documentary of a special Halloween broadcast aired in 1977, strange and horrific events occurred in front of a live audience. Late Night is a found footage film making an abundant use of portals, television or other gateways between us and the other side. As always, the alternative theories mentioned within may cause anxiety, rage, and disbelief, but that's why you're here, I hope. And kindly consider leaving a like, share, or subscribe if you enjoy this content. Portals are one of my favorite cinematic techniques, probably because it's very relatable and used in different clever ways. The definition of a portal is us, the audience, looking through a device into a different reality. A different reality doesn't always mean a different universe, but a new perspective managed on the other side of the portal. If you're looking for an example of how portals look into a different reality in the same universe, this video you're watching is an example of one. Not unlike the opening of The Outer Limits, I'm in control of what you see and hear. This is my perspective that I am shaping. Through the visuals, editing, and ideas, you are seeing a part of my world as I choose to reveal. When you've seen enough, you'll turn to another channel's programming. There will be someone else's perspective, another reality. Hence the phrase, "What reality are you from?" This even applies to live broadcasts. We will only see what the person holding the camera chooses us to see. The subject matter, the tone, all under the editorial thumb of its chief creator. My definition of a portal is a gateway or a window. It may be literal, technological, or even metaphorical. We may look or walk through it, but we must acknowledge the threshold where things on the other side are skewed from our point of view. Mostly in film, we, the audience in the real world, look over the shoulder of a character in a movie. The glass between us and the visual presentation, the ever color-changing pixels, is not part of the experience. This is why we say breaking the fourth wall, where the film brings the audience into a fictional world, whether for dramatic or comedic purposes. Late Night with the Devil is a found footage film about an up-and-coming host, Jack Delroy, headlining his fictional variety show on a fictional network. After struggling with poor ratings, a wife stricken with cancer, and an uncertain future in television, Jack puts up an occult-themed show to boost his ratings and look viable to the network executives he is beholden to. However, there are other more powerful forces he must answer to. After the enduring opening credits, Late Night opens immediately with a portal as a 1970s style television. It's aimed directly at and for us, through the fourth wall. Right off the bat, reality is being tampered with. Late Night didn't need to be presented as a mockumentary. It would have worked well alone as an alternative history period piece film. So, what does acknowledging the audience bring to the viewing experience? You may be surprised that to date, I have not watched any of the Paranormal Activity films, but I have watched the Blair Witch Project. What Blair and Late Night have in common is creating fictional lore around something that is relatable. While I have no experience hunting hermit witches, I once followed century-old logging trails, long before the days of GPS and Google Maps. Had I watched the Blair Witch Project when I was 13 or so, I would have told you it was the best movie ever made. Late Night leans on our attachment to the heyday of late-night comedy shows, featuring the legendary Johnny Carson. Set during the time where our television habits between the late local news and bedtime were so heavily sought after by networks and advertisers alike. Late night appeals to nostalgia of a time where we were given variety and entertainment without switching channels. We made connections with the personalities seen on TV. They became part of our routine, a part of our family. It was before social media, after all. I'm not sure if the film was aimed at viewers old enough to remember watching Johnny Carson as the king of late night, or those young enough to just recognize the name. The latter makes more sense because you can almost fool yourself into believing the alternative history. I'm not surprised that Carson had competition in real life, but had to research on the internet for a list who tried. Because history only remembers kings. However, Late Night takes it a step further by blending historical footage that really happened with fictional footage that didn't. By using the television as a portal, it's immediately setting up the theme of manipulating reality, blurring the lines of what is real and what is fantasy. This technique isn't unique. A notorious example is Oliver Stone's JFK, where historical footage was intertwined with recreated footage made for the film. It was so seamless. Some called out Stone for deliberately blurring the line between history and fiction. But back to Late Night. Film set the tone and the rules of its universe early. There's nothing unusual about that. Referencing historical events with a subjective narrative also is not new. Period piece movies do this. However, splicing historical footage between real and not real is either deceptive or clever. Late Night begins by pulling the viewer through the television portal. It is we who break the fourth wall, introduced to the chaos of the 1970s. We jump through topics we remember with Nixon, the energy crisis, and the Vietnam War, but it shoehorns its own lore as satanic panic, the demon Abraxas. We are baited to accept this as rules of the universe, and we are willing participants. While it sets the backstory of a documentary, it is preparing us for further disorientation, where we are unable to decipher what is real from illusion. If you know how the film ends, you understand exactly where I'm going with this. And it won't take long for Late Night to make us choose between them and our lying eyes. The film's opening narrator is somewhat honest when sharing that the recorded over-the-air broadcast would be spliced with behind-the-scenes footage. It's another example of a different perspective, not only because of its aspect ratio and shot in black and white. The cast and crew behavior is unfiltered and unvarnished. The tone is very different. It's more raw and emotional. In my headcanon, I regarded the behind-the-scenes footage as alleged conversations, a recreation influenced by the black and white cinematography. It portrays scenes as a memory pieced together from testimonies from witnesses that night. I think this because, 1, lawyers. No one would dare say the things they did on recorded media purely out of liability reasons. 2, we never see the roaming camera crew capturing these moments. They may be just out of frame, but they don't appear in reflections either when they should. 3, nobody, even when the camera is up and personal during the most sensitive of topics, ever acknowledges the camera. Maybe because they were never there. Regardless, the end conclusion is the same. Remember when I said that a different perspective is a different reality? It applies here. The reality of the behind-the-scenes footage is skewed, and the evidence is right in front of us, deceiving us from the beginning. There can't be just one camera operator at a given scene at one time. Take the early backstage discussion between Jack and Leo Fisk. The clip suddenly makes match cuts from one angle to another in the middle of their conversation. For this to work without a break in continuity, there must be at least 2 cameras. Yet we never see them in the background moments before we switch angles. They even evade casting reflections in a prominently positioned mirror. At best, this demonstrates benign misdirection. At worst, however, may be examples of time slips, breaks in reality we're not assumed to notice, like the unseen crew, the unseen spirits, jumping around the soundstage, observing the drama. While there's no reason to question the validity of the content backstage, we'll soon learn less can be trusted on stage.